Тебе не хватает?
Thank you very much for having me here. Can you hear me in the back? Yeah? Okay. If I get quiet, then just tell me to speak up, okay? So I'm supposed to talk today about ethics. But I guess I want to ask a question before I begin from you. When you hear the word ethics, what do you think of?
General rules.
Rules. General rules? Okay. More? Sorry. Behavior. What kind of behavior? So who's talking? Put your hand up. Okay, what kind of behavior? Right behavior. Okay.
Rules of appropriate behavior.
Oh, if you can talk, put your hand up.
Rules of appropriate behavior.
Rules of appropriate behavior. Again, rules. Oh, you already, let's have somebody else. Particular morality. If morality is like ethics, then it's particular ethics, so it doesn't tell me anymore. What about it?
It's kind of behavior and know how to behave in different states.
Okay, behavior. So we're getting a theme of behavior and right behavior. Something to do with proper behavior. Anything else to add to that? Commonly accepted behavior. So I'm guessing what you mean by, you would say then right, what makes a behavior right is what's commonly accepted? Oh, okay. So commonly accepted? Okay. Okay. So I understand the connection between thinking of ethics as being about rules and rule following. And that's an important part of ethics. And I certainly don't want to take away from that. But ethics is much more than that. And part of that has to do with the connection to what it means for a behavior to be right or to be commonly accepted. Because you can describe behavior. So-and-so did this kind of action, they did this action, they did that action. You have all kinds of different actions, and we can all agree, hopefully, that somebody did this action. The problem comes when we want to assign this category of right behavior. Something is good, or something is wrong. And that's when we have all kinds of discussions and debates. Because people don't usually debate about whether this action happened or not. I mean, you can usually find evidence or have some kind of facts about the behavior. But the debates come on or around, is it good? Is it right? Is this something that's acceptable behavior? And then we have all kinds of debates. So ethics is full of debates, not necessarily about the behavior, but about whether it's right behavior. And what makes it right? What makes it good? And a lot of people think of ethics then as about following rules, but ethics is not so much about following it, but asking why. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of the behavior? It's not so much the behavior again, but about what is the purpose of it? What makes it right? What makes it wrong? What makes it appropriate? What makes it something inappropriate? And that's what ethics wants to, what a lot of people who do ethics, what they focus on. That is, why? Why? For what purpose? And so one way of thinking about rules and laws is to, let's say, draw on a philosopher like Thomas Hobbes, who is or has read Hobbes, Leviathan. Good to see. So I'll do just sort of a brief summary. You all are familiar with Hobbes. Hobbes says that we're all very, very selfish. They're all very bad people. All of us. That's just human nature. We're all selfish. We're all looking out for ourselves. And when we're all looking out for ourselves, that makes for a very, very difficult situation, state of nature, which he calls. And the state of nature is, what's the famous phrase for the state of nature?
State of war.
State of war, and the nature of it is,
Against the war.
and also, he describes it. Short, nasty,
All against
brutish, right. I actually had a student who described people in the state of nature as being short, nasty, and brutish. But it's not people, it's the state of nature. So, we have this state of nature, we're all selfish, and when we're all pursuing our own interests, it's a really lousy situation. How do you get out of the state of nature? You have to have rules. You have to have laws. You have to have some way of enforcing agreements. So you have, we establish some kind of a contract between all members of the society, and there has to be some way of enforcing it, so we need rules and laws. Once we have rules and laws, we have the possibility of then being prosperous. We can do well in our lives, but we can only do well in our lives as long as there are rules and laws and people follow them. So for Hobbes, he identifies being prosperous, doing well, having a good life with following rules. And so for Hobbes, in the state of nature, there's no right and wrong. There's no right and wrong. There is only the command, do whatever you have to do to survive. In the state of nature, there's no right and wrong. But once we have laws, then we have a sense of right and wrong. Laws tell us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But the purpose of the laws is not simply to tell people what to do. It is for a prosperous life. We cannot have a prosperous life without laws. The possibility of prosperity requires laws. And so the purpose of laws, of following laws and rules, is so that we can be, if we want and work hard, we can be prosperous. You can have a good life. But that's only if you follow the rules, if you follow laws. So for Hobbes, he identifies a good life, a prosperous life, with laws and following laws, laws being kept. So here we have a connection between ethics and following laws as something that produces something good that we all want. We all want to be prosperous. You come here because you want an education that will lead to a good job so that you can get a good job, you can earn money, you become wealthy, you can do well in your life. You want to be prosperous, and that's why you've come here. But how can you be prosperous here? How can you be prosperous here?
Study hard.
Study hard, you can do that, yeah? But what if there are no rules? What if there are no laws? Let's just say your teachers, your professors, they decide, you know, you guys are all wonderful. You people are all wonderful. Everybody gets an A.
Wow.
Everybody gets an A. Would you want that? No. You don't want that. Now some of you may want that. And I know why you want it. But a lot of you, I'm guessing, would not want that. I'm guessing that many of you want an A, but you don't want everybody to get an A. Right? Because what an A means is to say that you've done well, you've worked hard, that you've satisfied the requirements, and you've shown some kind of excellence. That's what an A means. But how do we measure that? Well, we need some kind of rule. We need some way of evaluating, some kind of law to evaluate, to differentiate between doing well and doing not so well. to separate them. And so you need those rules. And so that's why we have ways of evaluating whether you get an A, a B, a C. And I try to make it very clear to my students. This is what's required for an A. This is what you get if you do this. You get a B, a C, D, E, a C, D, and then an F. These are the rules, laws. And what makes the A meaningful, what makes an A good thing, a really good thing, is that they have those laws, these rules, that professors have these rules. And where those rules don't exist, or people don't abide by the laws, then the A is meaningless. And this is the problem with cheating. This is the problem with plagiarism, for example. That is, when people cheat, they're breaking these rules, they're breaking these laws. And the marks that you get are not as meaningful. So that somebody whose effort might have gotten a D or a C now gets an A. In which case, the A doesn't mean as much anymore. And it's more difficult to be prosperous. So let me tell you something. Those of you, how many of you, I know it's very early, you're just getting into university now, but how many of you would like to go on to graduate school, to do graduate studies? A lot of you will? Let me tell you something. How many would you like to do it in Europe or North America? Let me tell you something that you won't want to hear. A lot of universities, I come from North America, from Canada, a lot of universities, when they see your application comes from Kazakhstan, they will do a bit of research and they will find that there's a lot of corruption here, particularly in the education system. And when you have an A on your transcript and they see that, they'll say, ah, it's that kind of an A. It's that kind of an A. This is where cheating hurts you. Because the A is meaningful when you get the A according to following the law, according to following the rules. Following the rules benefits everybody because it produces a good outcome, an A that anybody can trust. But if you don't, then it's like giving everybody A's, and it's not as meaningful. If you want to be prosperous, you should want to keep the laws, the rules. That is, not to cheat, not to plagiarize. But more importantly, you should want your friends and the people around you, your classmates, to not cheat. Because the more they cheat, the less your mark is valuable. The less your A is an A. Because of not following the law. Again, Hobbes tells us, you are prosperous when you follow the laws, when you follow rules. That allows you to become prosperous. If you want to be prosperous, if you want to do well, don't cheat. Don't plagiarize. And more importantly, make sure your friends don't, so that Nazarbayev University has a reputation of not being a place where students cheat. And if that's the case, then all of you, your degrees will be much more valuable, and you will do better because of it. If you want to be selfish, this is Hobbes. Be selfish. Be really, really selfish. But be smart about it. What is the best way for you to be prosperous? And that is, follow the laws. Don't cheat. So, one thing that ethics we try to talk about is that being ethical, doing the right thing, allows you to live a good kind of life, a good life. So ethics isn't about just following the law, but why? Why should you follow rules? Why should you follow laws? And one answer is, well, it allows you to be prosperous, to do well. Another answer comes from a British philosopher named John Stuart Mill. Anybody heard of John Stuart Mill? Utilitarianism? No? John Stuart Mill, he argues, we all want happiness. We all want pleasure. Every one of you wants to be happy. Every one of you, when you're calculating, when you're figuring out what you want to do, an important part of that calculus is, will it make me happy? It can be something as simple as ordering food. What do I feel like? What do I feel like today? What will make me happy? Now, for me, ordering a meal doesn't take that much because it doesn't take much to make me happy. I go with my wife to a restaurant and it takes her half an hour to decide what's going to make her happy in ordering a meal. But she wants to know what is going to give her pleasure in eating the meal. And this, for John Stuart Mill, is what we all do in our lives. We calculate, how is this going to make me happy? If I do this, will it make me happy or will it cause me suffering? And then we decide those things that bring about happiness, we call those things good. And those things that bring about suffering, we call those things bad. So actions that cause happiness, we call good. And actions which cause suffering and pain, we call them bad. Now, when Mill came out with this, first developed this idea, a lot of the people who heard this thought, this is terrible, because what Mill is saying is, do whatever pleases you. Just satisfy your pleasures. And Mill is saying, no, he responds and says, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Yes, there will be some people who feel that they want to satisfy whatever pleasures they have. But if you're smart about this, you'll realize that there are things that are more pleasurable and give you more happiness than other things. So, for example, you have a good meal. How long does that make you happy? How long? Sorry?
During the meal.
During the meal? How much after that?
1 hour.
Wow, an hour. Okay.
I'm not hungry.
Yeah, and then soon again you're hungry again.
Yeah.
So that is a kind of pleasure which is okay, but let's face it, it only lasts, well, maybe just as long as you're eating. And maybe not much longer. And then again, oh, I'm hungry again. Some of us more hungry sooner than others. But again, this is a kind of pleasure which doesn't last very long. But then there is a kind of, let's say, the pleasure of having a good friend. I hope that all of you have a good friend. And if you do, think about the kind of pleasure that you have from having that friend. That friend doesn't need to be around you, but simply having that friend can give you a pleasure at any time to know that I have a good friend. And so we can say that the pleasure that comes from having a good friend, for example, is better than the pleasure that comes from a meal. A pleasure from a meal lasts however long it takes you to eat it. The pleasure of having a good friend, having somebody that you love, is a pleasure that's lasts much longer, and let's face it, is much deeper, a greater kind of pleasure. And so there's different kinds of pleasures, different kinds of happinesses that you can have. And so if you're smart about this, you'll try to figure out what will make me the most happy. What will make me the most happy? Not just happy, because that's what animals do, right? Animals just do whatever they want. What will make me the most happy? Well, I can do what makes me happy, and I don't care about anybody else, but I find that then I don't have any friends. If I'm really selfish and I do whatever I want, I tend to lose friends and I just end up all by myself. So if I'm smart about this, I realize that if I'm thinking about what makes me happy, I have to consider other people. I also find that if I make other people happy, it makes me happy too. To help somebody makes me happy. It gives me a good feeling that lasts. It's a kind of deep happiness. And so we can say that certain actions that help other people are good. Even if it doesn't do anything specifically or directly to me, but helping other people can make me happy. And that is a greater happiness. And so Mill then comes up with this calculus. That is, something is better, something is more good than something else if it produces more happiness. And here more happiness can be for more people. So the more happiness it produces, say more happiness not just mine but other people, the more happiness it produces, the better it is. It's good. And so we admire people who help other people. We admire them and think of them as being better because they help other people. They produce happiness in other people. And the more happiness you can produce in other people, the better it is. So we aim for a kind of happiness, a kind of pleasure that is a better, higher kind of pleasure. And here at the university, we're trying to introduce you to a special kind of pleasure. Now this may sound very strange, but it's the pleasure of learning. The pleasure of learning. The pleasure of knowing something, of understanding something about the world. It can be something you didn't know and then you learn and you get a certain kind of pleasure from now understanding. A pleasure that comes from understanding how people work, why they do the things they do, how the world works. This is a kind of pleasure, a higher kind of pleasure we're trying to introduce to you. And hopefully in your studies, you will learn to enjoy and have pleasure from your studies. Now, I have students, my advisees, that they're not happy with their majors, and they choose their majors based on, well, what other people think, or what their idea of what they should do, but they're not happy. They're not happy. And most of them are in economics, in SHSS. How many want to be econ majors? Terrible. Terrible choice. All of you, terrible choice. Terrible. Economics will dull your soul. It will take your soul out of you and squish it. It's terrible major. Don't do economics. Choose something that you enjoy. How many of you really enjoy economics? Oh, I don't believe any of you. But even if you're strange and weird and like economics, okay, maybe there are some of you like that. Choose something that you enjoy. Choose something that brings you pleasure. Something that brings you happiness. That when you learn from it, you feel a kind of pleasure. When you write a paper and you write it well, you get a kind of pleasure from doing it well and learning something. That is good. That is good. When you plagiarize, you rob yourself of that pleasure. You do something not for the satisfaction and the pleasure of learning and the satisfaction of having done something yourself. You lose that pleasure. Don't plagiarize. Don't plagiarize. Because you're robbing yourselves of a kind of happiness, a kind of pleasure. The satisfaction of knowing, I wrote this paper, and even though it's terrible because I'm not very good in the subject, it's still mine. I have done it. And there's a kind of pleasure that comes with that. And I hope that all of you will get something of that. That pleasure that comes from doing something yourself and learning. Even if you don't get an A, even if you get a C, it's still a sense that you have done it and you've learned something from it. There's a kind of pleasure that comes from it. When you plagiarize, you rob yourself of that. We want you to experience the pleasure that comes from doing your own work and being satisfied with it, saying, yes, this is the best I could do. So, ethics is also interested in telling us what is going to make you happy. So, ethics what is going to make you prosperous, what is going to make you happy? And ethics asks us to judge. What is going to make you the most happy? And so we try to evaluate what kinds of behavior produces happiness, what kind of behavior produces pleasure, what kind of behavior doesn't produce pleasure, what doesn't produce happiness. So ethics is not just about following laws for no reason, but ethics is about following laws so that you become more happy. You experience greater pleasure. And hopefully, the rules of the university will allow you to enjoy your studies here. I hope you get as much pleasure as possible from studying here. Try, which means don't take economics as your major. So ethics is also concerned about not just particular actions, but also about life, about a kind of life. And here I want to talk about a Greek philosopher named Aristotle. Who's heard of Aristotle? Awesome. What are you reading? Nicomachean Ethics? You've read, but how many have read Aristotle? Awesome. Professors. Okay. Aristotle was a Greek philosopher who lived about 2,500 years ago. And he argued that we all want happiness. We all want happiness. But happiness is a kind of life. That the fullest, most complete kind of happiness you can have is a kind of life that's formed in a certain way. That if you live a kind of life, then you will become happy. So happiness is not just happiness in a good meal or happiness in this or that, but happiness is about a good life. Good life. Okay, well, what makes a good life? Here Aristotle says, well, how else do we use the word good? So when I was young, I tried to learn to play the piano. How many of you have taken piano lessons? Okay, I was terrible. Part of that was because I didn't like to practice. Those of you who have taken piano lessons know, I'm guessing that you have to do scales. Scales. Oh my goodness, scales. Oh my goodness. I still have nightmares about doing scales for like an hour. Terrible. So, I was terrible. I was not a good pianist. But what makes a good pianist? Well, it's somebody who practices and practices and practices and practices until they can do it well. They can do it well. The same is true of a good athlete. What makes LeBron James? Anybody heard of LeBron James? Yeah? Basketball player. Very good. He practices, he works hard, and he does the game of basketball very well. He's good at it. But becoming good at something requires practice, doing it over and over and over again, so that you become a certain kind of person, that your life becomes shaped in a certain direction, that you act in certain ways because you practice something over and over and over again. And Aristotle here says that we shape our lives into a good life when we do things that are virtuous, things that are good. So, the good person has virtues like telling the truth. The virtuous person is one who keeps their promises. The virtuous person is the one that helps their friends, is a good friend. The virtuous person is somebody who's courageous. You become these things by practicing them over and over again, and then you are good at that. You are somebody who just tells the truth. You are somebody who just keeps their promises. You are somebody who just is a good friend. You are somebody who is courageous. And you are that way because you practice it. And when you practice these virtues over and over again, you become a kind of person. So if you want, according to Aristotle, if you want to be happy, you have to be a good person. And to be a good person, you have to practice these virtues of doing good things. But the opposite is also true. That is, if you practice those things which are not virtues, lying, stealing, if you practice these things which are not good, you will also become that kind of person. The kind of person who is a liar. So, unfortunately, because we're all human beings, we do tell lies. But what's the difference between somebody who tells a lie and somebody who's a liar? Well, wouldn't we say that the liar is somebody who does it regularly? That's the kind of person they are. What about somebody who's a thief? I'm guessing most of you can probably remember a time when you stole something. Does that make you a thief? Well, you'd say no, no. What makes a thief? Well, it's somebody who does that. Not just once, but again and again. Behaving in a certain way over and over again, you become that kind of person. And Aristotle says we can train ourselves. You can either become the kind of person who trains themselves to be a good person and therefore happy, or you can train yourself to become a person who isn't a good person and therefore will be unhappy. You can train yourself. And this leads to a kind of life. A good life. All of you are preparing yourselves, hopefully you want a good life. You want a happy life. And you're trying to figure out how to do that. What is going to make me happy? What kind of person do I want to be? What kind of life do I want? So you're going to decide what your major is. Hopefully not economics. But what your major is. What are you going to do? What kind of work will you do? What kind of person am I going to be? You'll start thinking about, having a girlfriend, boyfriend, getting married. What kind of person, what kind of life do I want? All of these things now you're working towards. What kind of life do I want? What kind of life will I have? And Aristotle says, you have a choice now. You're young, and you can choose to have a better life or a not so good life. But it's a choice about how to train yourself. What kind of practices are you engaged in? Like practicing scales on a piano. About what do you do over and over again? What kind of person are you? And this goes, again, I want to bring up plagiarism. What kind of person are you? Are you somebody who cheats? Is that the kind of person you are? What kind of life follows from that? Do you think that people who are corrupt government officials, do you think they just sort of started? All of a sudden they started once they got a job in government? No, they started when they were your age or even younger. You start and it builds to that kind of a life. You have a choice. What kind of life do you want to produce? Is it going to be a good life? In ethics, we want to ask and to give guidance or to talk about, think about, what does it mean to live a good life? What does good mean? And using Hobbes and Mill and Aristotle and other philosophers as a guide, it's about producing happiness. It's about producing a kind of life, acting in a certain way. And you're young now, you still have a lot of choices. What kind of life do you want? So in ethics, this is what we consider. What kind of life do you want? What makes it good? How do you make it a good life? Now, my time is growing short. I will finish there. And are there any questions? The question is, what about IR? That's acceptable. It's acceptable. Other questions? Yes?
Why do you so strongly believe that one cannot enjoy cannabis?
I shouldn't have emphasized that so much. I don't want to. I don't want to spend too much time on that. What I would like to emphasize is that at SHSS we offer a wide range of courses, and a lot of them will help you in deciding in answering the question of what kind of life is worth living. Whether you're taking sociology, where you study human behavior, human interaction, social relationships, whether you take history, how have people acted, why are we the way we are, whether you take, you study religion, my colleagues in religious studies, or philosophy, there's anthropology. All of these are good ways of exploring what does it mean to live a good life. The danger is in only taking very narrow range of courses. So the problem with a lot of the econ majors is that they take a math-intensive econ, and so all they take pretty much is economics and math. You have a tremendous opportunity here. But for many of you, it's only going to be for 4 years after this. And then you're going to start the rest of your life. You're going to get a job, you'll get married, you'll have a family, you have to support them, and you won't have the opportunity to learn. This is a tremendous opportunity. You have a remarkable privilege in being here because you can take such a wide variety of courses and learn. You don't have to worry about a job yet. You don't have to worry about paying bills yet. But you have this tremendous opportunity to learn. Grab onto that. Grab onto it. Study things that you think might be interesting. Find something different to study. Because once you're out of university, it's very difficult to learn more. But here, you just have such a remarkable opportunity. Grab onto it. Take a wide variety of courses. Choose something different. And see what you can learn. And can almost guarantee it, you'll be a better person because of it. But you have to try something different. And that's hard.
And can you study ethics per se in SHSS?
I teach a course in ethics. But it's not a major or anything, but yeah. You can take ethics, yeah. I'm a very hard teacher though. So, yes, I'm a very hard teacher. There's a hand, that hand, yeah.
To be a good pianist, you must have many practice. Do you think everybody can be a good pianist?
No, I can't. I can't. I'm just not physically able to do that.
Even if you have many practice,
I will still be terrible. I will still be terrible. However, as human beings, there's something that all of us have, this ability to think, this ability to reason, this ability to evaluate and to think critically about whether something is good or bad, whether something will produce a kind of happiness, whether it produces a good. This is something that we can all do. It's available to all of us, so that all of us can act towards producing a good life.
So you are telling that all good persons always have good lives, and all bad persons have bad lives. But as far as I know, there are some bad persons having better lives than really good persons. So it seems it doesn't work.
Yeah. That's a good. Another philosopher, his name is Plato, another ancient philosopher, teacher of Aristotle. He tells a story. He tells a story about how a person finds a ring. And this ring, when you put it on, it makes you invisible. And what do you think he does with that ring? He uses it. What he does is he kills the king, he marries the queen, and then he becomes the ruler of the country. And he can do whatever he wants, because whenever there's danger, he can put the ring on and hide. He can steal whatever he wants. Basically, he can do anything he wants. And the person in the story that Plato's telling, he says, wouldn't that be the happiest person in the world? And the response, Plato's response is no. That would be the most miserable person. That would be the most miserable. This is somebody who follows their passions, does whatever they want. They train themselves to just, if you have a feeling and you want something, you take it. How is that different from a dog? A dog does whatever they want, right? Who here would like to live the life of a dog? Nobody? Anybody? You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. But who wants to be like a dog, like an animal? No, nobody wants to be like that. Nobody wants to be constantly driven by their passions. To do, one minute I feel like this, and another minute I feel like that. That's not a happy person. That's a miserable person. The happy person is the one who says, what will make me truly happy? Who reflects, who uses reason, thinks about it. That's the happy person. The person who guides their life. So they're not controlled by passion and desire. They control their passion. So they are passionate, but towards a goal. That's the person who's happy. So, this person who has all this power is miserable. They're afraid. They're always afraid of other people. And they don't sort of fulfill themselves as a human being. They're more like animals. Nobody wants that. We have heroes. The heroes are the ones who sacrifice themselves for other people, who do good things. That's who we hold up as being, these are the people we want to be like. Not the people who just do whatever they feel like. Yeah.
But if people becoming more happy when they practice good thing, why they still practice bad thing?
Yeah, because we're human beings. I mean, this is the problem, is that all of you have had that experience of knowing what you should do. You know you should do it, and you don't do it. How many of you have an assignment due? You have an assignment due, and you're sitting in front of the computer, and it's a blank screen. And you're thinking, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to do it. It's due in an hour. Tick, tock, tick. Oh, I've got to do it. Oh, I don't want to do it. Oh, I can't do it. That's the human condition. I mean, that it's so hard that we know what to do. We know what we should do, and it's so hard to do it. But the way to solve that, or to do better at it, is to train yourself so that you simply just do it. And so it's a matter of practice. That's why you have all these assignments from your teachers, and when you take my class, you'll have a lot of assignments. You do it over and over and over and again. And my hope is that by the time you're done my course, it's a little bit easier to write. You do better at it because you practice it over and then you take somebody else's course and you practice it over and over and over again. And so after 4 years in SHSS, not in economics, you will be a better person. You will be able to do it better. Maybe one more question?
Not studying philosophy really makes me happy.
Does it make you happy? No. No. Being a philosopher, taking a philosophy course helps in anything you're studying. Taking a philosophy course will help you. Whether it's math, physics, economics, whatever you're studying, taking philosophy will help you. I'm not suggesting you should take a major. None of you should take a major in philosophy. But all of you should take a philosophy course. You will be better off because it will help you in whatever you're studying. If you want to get into law school in the West, in North America, you'll have a better chance of getting into law school, medical school, graduate school in general, if you have philosophy courses. You are better able to get into those schools. It's just fact. But you shouldn't study it as a major. Terrible major. Okay, I think my time is up and finish there.